Karen called the police alleging trespassing on my own property, and I confess I am deeply disturbed. Before delving into the details, allow me to share a bit of my story. I was raised by my grandfather for most of my life, in a stable family environment, despite some peculiar circumstances. We live in a suburban area, surrounded by forests, with about 10 acres of property marked by stone walls. One of these walls separates my grandfather's land from a dead-end alley, where, until then, we had never had any problems. My grandfather has always been receptive to neighbors requesting permission to use his land, as long as there was a valid reason. Recently, as I was clearing vegetation around a wooded area where a tree had fallen, an unpleasant misunderstanding arose. A neighbor, seemingly enraged, emerged from her house in a fury, dressed in a bathrobe, labeling me as an invader. In the face of bewilderment, she claimed I couldn't be there, accusing me of invading the forest with her children inside. Confused, I asked why I wouldn't have permission, and she promptly labeled me as an intruder and an idiot. Stunned, I explained that the forest is part of my family's property, and we had been there for months, taking care of the fallen tree. We just needed a clear path to remove it. However, Karen persisted in her hostile attitude, insisting that the workers hired by her boyfriend's father were the true owners. At this point, she gestured around, proclaiming that the entire area belonged to her boyfriend's father. I was bewildered, trying to deal with the situation when she threatened to call the police again. I realized I was dealing with someone whose arrogance and lack of understanding could create unnecessary problems. Despite trying to explain, she continued to assert unfounded things. The property beyond the boundaries is the city's water treatment station and has no public access. I am perplexed by this absurd and frustrating situation as I try to resolve this misunderstanding caused by such inflexible and unreasonable behavior. I also noticed that she referred to us as workers, so I looked her in the eyes and said, "I think I'll need to call the police because I won't move, and I don't care what you, your boyfriend, or your boyfriend's father have to say about it." I shrugged, leaning against the wall, and grabbed my phone to call my grandfather and let him know where I was. He assured me he would be there in a few minutes and asked me to stand firm. At that moment, she dramatically dialed 911, claiming there was a suspicious individual on her property, refusing to leave, and that she was afraid for her life. Anxiety began to take hold of me, even though I was armed only with a hook-shaped pruning shear. I decided to call the non-emergency police line and briefly explained the situation as a land dispute that got out of control. I assured the operator that I was unarmed, waiting on my own property, and asked them to peacefully resolve the situation. While waiting, I heard my grandfather arriving. He walked through the yard toward me. The aforementioned Karen then ordered him to stay away, claiming he couldn't enter her yard. My grandfather, with a growl, told her to shut up and approached me, climbing the wall to stand by my side. He gave her a challenging look and questioned who she thought she was to yell at his grandson. The called Karen repeated her claim that her boyfriend's father owned everything, and both of us would be arrested for trespassing. My grandfather, firmly, explained that she would be shocked to find out that he wasn't the owner of the land. The heated argument continued for a few minutes until 2 police cars arrived, with 3 officers entering the yard. Karen resumed her shouting, claiming that we had no right to be in the forest behind her house, where she alleged her children were present. The officer looked at my grandfather, asking if we were the owners of the property behind the wall. My grandfather confirmed, showing his ID to prove the address. I, in turn, used Google Maps to show the property boundaries and how it extended into the forest. The police officer agreed with us, and we explained that we were there to remove a tree and its remnants, with permission from the owner of the neighboring house, who had already agreed to toss leaves and twigs onto our property. Eventually, the owner of the neighboring house appeared, scolding Karen for harassing us while we were just trying to clean up. The police allowed my grandfather and me to resume our activities. A few weeks later, we found out that the called Karen was evicted for several reasons, with this incident being the final straw. Honestly, considering all the circumstances, I feel absolutely no sympathy for her. How irrational it is to lose control over someone simply trying to clear a fallen tree. So, he acts like a complete fool when the homeowner shows up and basically tells them to shut up because of the original post, praising them for standing their ground and not letting a stranger dictate their choices. My girlfriend's family disapproves of our relationship and forced us to break up. Honestly, I'm not sure how to proceed. We've been separated for almost a month, after a year and a half of a relationship that started in school, where we graduated in the same year and participated in the same program. Despite both being Sino-Canadians, our backgrounds are quite different. I grew up in an environment closer to poverty, where if you wanted something, you had to work and save on your own, without help from my parents, who couldn't afford it. On the other hand, she grew up in a financially stable environment, although her parents had been separated for over 30 years, her father still being the financial provider for all expenses until earlier this year. Basically, her mother disapproves of our relationship due to my family background, wishing that she dates and marries someone already established and capable of sustaining themselves, if not more. This situation deeply hurts me. I can't change my family background and how I grew up, but, due to the environment I was raised in, I had to mature quickly and develop a maturity beyond my age. If everything goes wrong, I have no one to turn to. In fact, I relate better to older people than to those my age. Upon graduating, I landed a six-figure job that would allow me to save more money than I ever imagined having in my bank account. Despite the differences in our upbringing, she was willing to build a future together, accepting less than she was used to in financial terms. She didn't care about my family's background. Our compatibility was evident in many aspects, sharing the same moral, ethical, and life goals, including plans to move in together and eventually become homeowners. We started the relationship with no intention of just repeating the school dating pattern. We had jobs at the same company during our last year of internship and continued going out together whenever possible. When we started dating, we were in sync in almost everything, except for the lack of support from her family. Especially her mother didn't fully support it from the beginning, going so far as to separate us on several occasions. I understand that when living under your parents' roof, you must follow their rules, but I feel that the family has crossed the line. For example, even at 20, she needs her mother's approval to go out with friends. If she doesn't return immediately after work, her mother bombards her with incessant calls, asking her to come home immediately. The situation becomes increasingly challenging for both of us, and I am lost on how to deal with the pressure and obstacles our relationship faces. I realized that the atmosphere and energy change every time she talks to her family. One day, we started a conversation, and I addressed the possibility of breaking up because I noticed that she was deeply divided and exhausted from being in the middle between me and her family. We agreed it would be better, as she expressed the desire to have her family's support if we didn't decide to get married. However, less than a week after the breakup, her mother pressured her older sister to find someone else for my ex-girlfriend, simply because he had a more stable financial situation. When she expressed the desire to get back with me, her mother freaked out, threatening never to speak to her again if we resumed the relationship, practically disowning her. Currently, we are keeping our distance because she wants any future contact to be genuine. I'm not sure how to proceed from here, as both of us imagine spending the rest of our lives together. Even after the breakup, I can confidently say that our feelings for each other have not changed, despite the challenges we faced, especially with the family. I want to reconnect, but I'm not sure if it's the right time to do so. I need to be honest, the fact that my ex-girlfriend didn't fight for us, giving in to her mother's demands and saying that it was time to make her own decisions at 26, raises a significant red flag. It seems that she allows her family to dictate her choices, including calling to make sure she follows the schedules. This, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. Regarding my husband, I face a similar situation. We've been together for 8 years, married for 2. My family and he have never been very close, and his relationship with his family is limited. The distancing began years ago when my younger sister and he were close. We planned a trip to Las Vegas for my birthday, where he paid for her to come surprise us, just covering the cost of the airfare. However, my husband started avoiding my family when frequent dramas involving them arose over the years, and he found himself involved in those situations. His unwillingness to be part of my family creates a dilemma for me, and I am sincerely lost on how to deal with this complex family dynamic. We asked for a moment alone so she could enjoy some time at the casino, restaurant, or shopping. 2 hours passed, and we couldn't find her anywhere. It seemed she was extremely upset that we had been without her for so long, feeling ignored for hours. Finally, she showed up in our room, packed her things, and changed her flight to that night. She didn't speak to us for months, blocked us, and ignored us at family events over the years. Increasingly, in these situations, she gets upset, doesn't communicate, and then blocks us. We give her chances repeatedly, but the breaking point came in August when we planned her bachelorette party. We invested hundreds of dollars in the hotel, decorations, and show tickets. However, she got upset because my sister and I wanted more control over the decorations, claiming the fun was being sucked out, and we were like robots organizing the party. She canceled the entire weekend, kicked us out of the wedding, and said we would be escorted out if we showed up. Even a week later, when she said we weren't kicked out, attempting to discuss these issues was met with defensiveness. My husband and I have faced similar situations with my other sister, but it seems we are on a better page now. However, he has kept his distance, not attending dinners and events. My mom called asking why he hates them, and he's accused of being ashamed of the family. Now, my husband avoids any involvement with my family, especially because my sister is getting married, and he doesn't want to deal with potential embarrassing situations due to his anxiety. He feels that my family is toxic, something he has not experienced in his own family, and is resistant to any involvement with them. I feel trapped in the middle of this situation and don't know how to proceed. The response to the original post seems to be in denial, as the family displays toxic behaviors. The husband is correct in considering these repetitive outbursts as indicators of a harmful family dynamic. The author tries to navigate between the parties, but the situation is challenging. It is advised to evaluate the health of the family relationship and consider the toxic attitudes that may be affecting the quality of life and relationships. It also seems that this drama has never been addressed, and that's why your sister got super defensive when you tried to talk to her about it, saying, "Hey, this has to stop." Perhaps it's time for some self-reflection and consider the possibility that your husband is probably right. If I were in his place, I wouldn't want to deal with this toxic mess either. My husband wants me to cut off contact with my sister because she betrayed me, and right now, I don't know what to do. He just told me this, and I'm totally clueless about the whole situation. I'm not even sure how I'm feeling right now. Months ago, my husband found out my sister's fiancé, let's call him Mark, that's not his real name, and they weren't very close, but they knew each other. My husband was coming to pick me up for a date, and Mark was surprised because my sister told him she was going out with me. Once he said that, it set off an alarm for both of them. I have to clarify a bit before the next part, because my sister and I moved to the same city to work, while our parents are back in our hometown. We are very close and spend a lot of time together. Sometimes, my sister would just show up after work, and we'd go grab a drink or something. So, at some point, my sister told Mark that she was going out with me again, and my husband mentioned it with indifference. I thought we were going out in my sister's place and didn't think much of it at the time since she sometimes just shows up. I ended up calling my sister to tell her that I was going out with my husband and asked her not to come along if she was planning to talk to my husband and Mark. So, think of it as if I were helping to cover for my sister. They checked both mine and my sister's phones. Of course, my husband found nothing on mine, but Mark found some text messages that definitely didn't look good. They hired a private investigator to follow me and my sister, and they caught my sister going to a hotel with a guy several times. Jumping to the present days, I'm very angry about this. I felt like my husband couldn't trust me, but the circumstances seem a bit more reasonable, especially when I have all the context. I asked him why he didn't talk to me about this, and he said if I knew, my sister would know too, and they wouldn't get any evidence to prove she was cheating. And you know what? I'm angry that he's probably right. I would have definitely talked to my sister if I knew what was going on and tried to dissuade her. My husband now wants me to cut off contact with my sister because he says we're too close, and he's worried she'll be a bad influence. He believes that our relationship will end if he finds out I'm helping my sister. The problem is that my sister has been my support when I'm going through difficulties, and now that she's going through a problem, I can't imagine not being there for her. I also hate the fact that I should be upset with my sister and not with my husband, but honestly, in this situation, I don't know what to do. I think it's crucial to understand that your sister's problem is entirely hers. She chose to openly betray and used you to try to cover up these instances of infidelity. She got caught red-handed, but, considering this, I find it incredibly inappropriate for the original post's spouse to give any kind of ultimatum, like you know what? I can't support your sister anymore, or I'll leave you. Yes, it's possible to be upset with siblings' decisions, but saying that you can never speak to them again because of this seems extremely ridiculous and somewhat extreme, in my opinion. Therefore, I believe that having a deep conversation about this would be truly beneficial because cutting a sibling out of your life is not that simple. The original poster's husband needs to understand that it's not that simple, there are many nuances and a considerable gray area, and such a decision deserves careful consideration. It seems like my parents are being hostile to my fiancé due to his lack of education, and honestly, I don't know what to do. We've been together for 3 years and engaged for 2 months. I come from a family with a high formal education, my parents have master's degrees, 3 out of 4 grandparents attended college, and one of my brothers has a PhD. I have my undergraduate degree, but I probably wouldn't have achieved it without a full scholarship due to my parents' constant pressure. I have a lovely career in a different field than I studied, and I plan to raise my children differently, without the same pressure I experienced. My fiancé, on the other hand, wasn't as fortunate. His family didn't value education, and he probably has an unresolved learning disorder. His father abandoned him when he was 16, and he had to work to support his mother. Although he's intelligent and hardworking, he may seem a bit ignorant in basic knowledge. His knowledge of history is uneven, he struggles in writing, and he doesn't use proper grammar when speaking. However, this hasn't been a significant obstacle in his professional or personal life. My parents haven't accepted this reality. Even after meeting him only a few times during our dating, they exclude him from conversations and belittle him, even when the subject is something my fiancé knows about. They insist that I give up on him, presenting various hypothetical scenarios of how terrible my life will be if I marry someone uneducated. I responded directly to them that they have no say in this decision and have ignored them since. I'm fine with limiting contact with my parents until they change their minds. Eventually, they will accept the situation, as they reacted similarly when one of my brothers married a 21-year-old and another enlisted in the army. However, this will take time, and we will be engaged. It's not crucial for me to have a super close relationship with them. There have been periods in my life when we had no relationship. They are amazing, and I've spent my entire adult life without depending on their support, either financially or emotionally. However, my fiancé is deeply hurt and wants to earn their approval. He knew this could be a possibility, but the reality hit him like a devastating blow. I tried to prepare him the best I could, but, considering my parents don't visit often, and our jobs prevent us from flying through 3 different time zones, there haven't been enough opportunities for him to see the kind of people they really are. Moreover, he's not comfortable with the idea of limiting contact with my parents, as he is very close to his own family. Excluding my family at this time is something he can't conceive. I'm uncertain about how to intervene on both fronts. My parents will need years to get used to this reality, and I won't be able to force them to accept him. I don't believe I can make my fiancé simply let the situation pass and wait with me. I'm, in a way, at a crossroads and really don't know what to do. I believe the old saying, "it takes 2 to tango," really applies here because it seems like your fiancé may not fully understand how toxic his family was in the early part of his life. It seems like they placed excessive pressure on studies, valuing it more than who you are as a person. Of course, education is important, undoubtedly, but it seems like your parents may have misplaced priorities. It's alarming how they treated your future husband. Your fiancé clearly came from an unfavorable circumstance and didn't have the same opportunities as you and your parents did. Therefore, they are being quite irrational. Maybe it's time for your fiancé to spend more time with them, allowing him to see up close how toxic and abusive these people can be. Anyway, I sincerely hope everything works out for you, and your parents don't play any role in ruining the relationship you have with your fiancé. Thank you for watching. When subscribing, don't forget to hit the bell to activate notifications and keep following all the stories using the playlist at the top of the description. Thank you for watching until the end of this video from the Reddit channel. I hope you enjoyed the shared stories. If you did, don't forget to share with your friends and family, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any future content. Your support is crucial for the channel's growth. Until the next story.